Hello everyone, this is going to be our final vlog for Informatics 685 titled Data Exchange CDSS. In this course, we were given a scenario where we were supposed to design and plan out a system that will be used to solve the issue presented in this case. And so in this institute, there was an issue with too many orderings of radiology images, and those can be costly. So we were trying to design a system that can reduce the number of unnecessary images. And so the three documents that we were focusing on are the requirements management plan, the system design document, and the sample test plan. So to begin this presentation, I wanted to talk about the CDSS requirement management plan that is involved with this project. And so with this documentation, we will be able to present the appropriate information that is used to successfully manage the project when planning and implementing it into the existing workflow. The document is designed for the project teams to understand the importance of the requirements presented in this document. By having this requirement management plan, the users can document initial requirements as well as modifications that can be used throughout the project's life cycle. The information document in this plan can be used by the project management team, including the users and developers, to collaboratively work together to mutually understand the system's integration. And so the role and responsibilities would include I made up these organizations, the Mercer Healthcare Organization as well as the Atlanta Healthcare Organization. And so the primary organization that is trying to implement this sort of system into their clinical workflow is going to be the Mercer Healthcare, while the Atlanta Healthcare is an organization that is more focused on development and testing out the system so that the Mercer Healthcare can be able to utilize it into their workflow. And so the requirements, because it is called the Requirements Management Plan, does define what requirements are in this document. And so the four factors that I thought were important to mention are that the requirements had to be specific, it had to be measurable, it had to be action appropriate and realistic. And so with these four factors, that can avoid any misinterpretation or misunderstanding in wording presented in this document, as well as being measurable in a way that the developers and users both alike can identify possible issues that can occur with the established requirements. The next point I want to talk about is the traceability. So I didn't quite understand what the traceability was until I looked it up, and I figured, hey, yeah, this is going to be very important to incorporate into a management plan. And so with the traceability, this allows for documentation for consistent tracking on the project's lifestyle to ensure that each step of the project is achieved. So every milestone that is identified in this document can be traced back through older documents for the requirements of the system. And so testability requirements make sure that the project's design is reproducible, feasible, and follows the organization's expectations, especially their goals and objectives. Last but not least, I wanted to mention the appendix. So that is where most of the additional information about the different factors in this document are located. And so that can include references to key terms and definitions, requirements definition, as well as the traceability definition. The next documentation I wanted to talk about is the system design document. And this document is an overview of the physical hardware of the system as well as the internal features of the hardware of the system to be implemented into an existing EHR application so that they could use it in the clinical workflow to optimize patient care. And so I did have some fun making these diagrams. Here is one of the diagrams that I used for the documentation, and this is a clinical decision system support system hardware architecture. And as you can see, on the left we have the workstation and the specialist system. And so it starts with the PCP workstation, which is the primary care provider workstation. They will identify that they may need a radiology image, so they send it to the PCP system, and that automatically goes through the CDSS server. There, the server will determine whether the patient needs the image. It will analyze the patient's data, and then it will go through the knowledge base database and verify with the inference engine to determine if the patient needs the image. If they do, then the data format of the order will be converted to the one for the specialist system through this conversion web services, and at the same time it will also notify the patient needs an image to the provider workstation. And so after the order has been sent and converted to the specialist system, they will be able to see it and upload the respective images, and that will send the images right to the PCP system. Another diagram that I made was the use case diagram, and this is in reference to the users as well as the enterprise electronic healthcare system, and this is in consideration to the CDSS that I am designing. And so the primary care provider has multiple actions within the system. They'll be able to log in, access the patient profile, order the radiology image, and that's where the CDSS comes in. And I put that as a user, as a system user, and so that will take the radiology image, analyze it, query the image or the information from the database, and that will, with the patient data, will verify whether the patient requires the image or not. If they do need it, then at the same time they will notify the sent order image and transmit the image order over to the radiologist. The radiologist will receive that image order and upload it, and then they'll send the image over right back to the PCP, and then the PCP will receive the image. And so an assumption that we want to make for the radiologist when they do upload the image is that they have made an appointment with the patient. The patient has come to the radiology lab to get their image done, and there they'll be able to upload the image and send the image over to the PCP. Now, the other diagram I made was the activity diagram, and here you can see the clinician with the respective systems listed, the PCP clinic system, the CDSS, and the radiology lab system. And so the different activities performed, starting with the clinician logging into their clinic system, and then being able to order the radiology image if deemed necessary by the CDSS with the knowledge base database. And then they will transmit the radiology image order to the radiology lab system, where they'll send the image results back to the PCP, and that's where the clinician is able to use those images to determine the appropriate diagnosis. The last documentation I want to talk about is the system test plan. In this document, the test plan for the data exchange clinical decision support system will be overviewed. The CDSS was created by Mercer Healthcare, which is an organization I made up. This document will provide strategies for testing and responsibilities to ensure that the system meets the requirements and goals of the healthcare organization. Here is the table of content for this documentation. It includes very general information about the test and test methods that are required for the system's implementation. And so you can see the different testing strategies that were incorporated, from alpha testing to beta testing, and see how it's important in integrating these tests into trying to implement the system into a workflow. Another important thing I wanted to mention is the features to be tested. So that would include anything ranging from the CDSS trying to analyze the patient's data to incorporating the data into a knowledge-based database to give the users the most appropriate output with the inference engine. And then the roles and responsibilities were described in the previous documentation. Test schedule that was defined in the document as well, and then features not to be tested are anything that is outside of the realm of the CDSS. So any EHR system issues that don't pertain to the CDSS will not be tested. Here's a quick overview of the system test plan. And so these are the tasks that were listed within my document, ranging from determining the purpose of the integrated system to retrieving necessary supporting resources, documentation requirements, designing the system, and then the most important for this documentation, the test, validate, and verify the requirements, where the project team will be able to modify the established requirements based on feedback, and then only then will they be able to implement and maintain the system with the respective responsibilities and roles. And then here are my references. Thank you.